afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Our guest today is one of Vermont's most recognized and respected public servants. He's served in the legislature, he's been the state director for Senator Patrick Leahy, and he spent the past 6 years as Vermont's Secretary of Agriculture. Chuck Ross is with us this afternoon, and he's here in his new role. Earlier this month, he was appointed director of UVM Extension. Well, congratulations, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Judy. It's great to be here.
Now, your connection to Vermont and UVM runs pretty deep. You've been in Vermont for all but a few years of your life. So where did you grow up?
Well, I was born here in Burlington, and then my dad got a job with the federal government, appointed by then President Kennedy, and we moved to Potomac, Maryland, where I did my elementary school years. And then my dad, being a lifelong Vermonter, wanted to get back to Vermont, so there we came. And we posted up in Heinsberg, and we've been basically based out of Heinsberg ever since.
So tell me a little bit about your family.
Well, my dad, lifelong Vermonter, makes me, I think, the 8th generation. My mom was from Iowa farm stock root, and so I come from Iowa and Vermont. But and Dad was a longtime public servant, worked for a number of positions, a presidential appointee, and we ran a farm in Heinsberg that he started in 1965, and it's where I live, and my brother and sister and I all are involved in that farm now. And
so agriculture's pretty much been part of your family then?
One way or another, yes, it has been. Always, I came back to Vermont and started to learn how to be a farmer and making hay and cleaning stalls and all the rest of it. And it certainly comes from both sides. We had an apple orchard from my great-grandfather on Shalott, and my other side of the family had the farm in Iowa.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me, you were in the class of 1974 at Champlain Valley Union High School. I think we have some photos we want to show folks. We dug out your senior picture. Look at that hair.
Yeah, that was good hair days, and I can't do that anymore.
And so some of your classmates obviously might be remembering you.
Yeah, and I still bump into them around here, which is nice about living locally.
Was there a mentor in your teenage years?
I had a couple of people that were important to me. There was a gentleman who taught me how to hunt and fish on Lake Champlain, a guy by the name of Army Mount. My then high school hockey coach, who's a great friend now and really helped me then, Greg Clough, longtime educator at CVU. Mm-hmm. Those are a couple of people that made a big difference in my life.
Well, we're not done with the yearbook just yet. You were selected for Boys State, which is a leadership program for high school seniors, and you're in the upper right-hand corner. Tell us a little bit about, you were selected the most respected male student, and there's picture proof of that.
Yeah, well, those were a long time ago, and I took my job as a student, so to speak, seriously at the time. I really tried to do well in school, and had a great group of kids to go through school with, and I was able to be engaged in athletics, and that's where I started to think about community service, some of the stuff that I did in high school in Heinsberg.
Mm-hmm. And you've also were voted most likely to succeed.
Yeah, I guess that's the truth. There's Donna Bratz, who was a classmate of mine from 7th grade on. Yep.
Talk a little bit about your athletics too, because you were a good student, but you were also a good athlete as well.
Yeah, I ended up having a great time with athletics. I actually started to play hockey when I moved back to Vermont at age 12 and learned how to play soccer and also played baseball. But it turned out hockey ended up serving me well. I went on to be able to play for the University of Vermont, mm-hmm. Which was a great experience, and created a social network that I still enjoy today. I play every Thursday night with former UVM players at the Gut, and kind of just continue to have a great time.
Just don't get hurt.
30 years of playing after, and haven't gotten hurt yet, so yeah.
So your major was not in agricultural science, as I understand?
I was a geography major and did a lot of work in environmental studies. I was a course short of having a double major, as I recall, and agriculture is kind of what I did in the summer with the family, and geography was my interest, but it also turned to agriculture as the years went on.
Is it accurate to say that after graduate school, then you really immersed in farming?
Yeah, I studied the cause and significance of agricultural land conversion in graduate school, and I decided to come back to Vermont after graduate school to kind of practice what I had been preaching as a student and try to get engaged at the community level to address the issue that I saw as really problematic, which is the loss of agricultural land as a natural resource that our communities depend upon.
Talk a little bit about, you had a commercial hay business?
Yeah, so I came back and I remember my dad buying a tractor and a baler and driving it down the driveway and said, I think we're going to scale up a little bit. And that was about a year after I'd been back. And before I knew it, we were producing 25 to 28,000 square bales of hay a year and selling it all over the state. And I did that for most of the years I was farming. And I think we grossed out at about 800 acres and 60 horses. And so we had quite an operation going for a time.
Tell me a little bit about, Iowa, because you mentioned the connection there, but that's sort of a different form of agriculture.
Yeah, so I went out to see my grandparents as a child almost every summer, and we had a very large farm by Iowa standards, a couple thousand acres, and we watched during my lifetime the evolution from a very diversified farm to a traditional corn and soybean operation today. And it was a great experience because it's a whole different scale and type of agriculture than we typically see in Vermont. And I learned a lot at my grandfather's knee, and unfortunately we decided we needed to sell the property because none of us live out there, and if you want to be a good steward, you really need to be there.
Right. So when did you decide to get personally involved in public policy?
Well, I was partly pivoting off my graduate school experience coming back to Vermont. I got involved in the local political scene, if you will, in the Heinsberg Planning Commission, the Regional Planning Commission, where I, started to understand the give and the take that it takes to be engaged. And then that led me to run for a state representative, and that's another picture with a lot of hair on it. At that time I got a mustache when I was running for a state representative back in '88. And that's all based upon that local experience where you really understand how the biggest challenge, as my dad used to say, is really working with and your neighbors, because it's very personal, and you actually feel it when you're on a local board. That's one of the hardest public service jobs to do, because you actually have to deal with the very people whose lives you may be affecting.
After serving in the Vermont House, you spent 16 years as a state director and senior advisor to Senator Leahy. What did you learn in that job?
One of the biggest things I learned in that job is if you're going to be a public servant, you need to say thank you. And Senator Leahy exemplified that almost every day. It also showed me the importance and power of our elected officials, particularly in Washington, and the need and the ability to collaborate across the communities in Vermont. That, when I was there representing Senator Leahy, which is an enormous privilege, we always worked with people, and we always magnified our ability by working with Vermonters who were interested in what we were up to.
And so you've also served the public in a variety of commissions and boards, including the UVM Board of Trustees and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. What has been the most rewarding to you personally, do you think? Two things. One, serving on the local boards in Heinsberg, so you really get to learn the consequences of your decisions on a very personal level. And then I also had the opportunity to be on the Shelburne Farms board for over 21 years, where I really got to understand the importance of youth education and understand how to integrate the concepts of sustainability and long-term stewardship into a public policy arena and the practice of taking care of things and advancing a mission within an organization. Do you think most communities have an appreciation for that, realize how important some of the open land they might have or scenic views that they might have?
I do think people do understand it. It doesn't make the decisions always any easier, but I think given the public policy framework we've put together in Vermont a number of ways, from current use to Act 250 to our local zoning ordinances, Vermonters know the importance of it and they try to address it as best they can. But as I said, that doesn't always make it easy.
Now, you spent 6 years as Secretary of Agriculture. How do you assess the job that you did?
Well, the job I did was a we. It wasn't me. I had the opportunity to work with the really great people in the agency. And
just for reference point, about how many people are in the Agency of Ag, just so people understand?
There are about 120 now. When I started, there were about 83. And the growth reflected the importance of the work that we had. I was there at a time when I got to take advantage of the opportunities around the local food movement, the interest in food. And I was also there at a time when we needed to address water quality. So we really were trying to advance the empowerment of agriculture and the food systems in Vermont, while at the same time we were trying to address a long-term challenge, and that was the water quality issues, of which agriculture is a part, but not the sole issue.
I attended one of the meetings that you had, the open meetings for farmers to come in and learn more about some of these water quality issues. What did you hear from farmers? Because, as you said, it's not just agriculture.
They understand they're part of the community, and they want to do the right thing. And many of them, if not most of them, do the right thing. And they've been trying to follow our guidance as a society for a long time. Sometimes our guidance hasn't always been as appropriate as it could have been, because we have had policies that they have followed that now we're asking them to do it a little differently, and they're kind of scratching their head saying, I was trying to do what you told me to do last time, and now you want us to change. Yeah. That's part of what happens in every business, and certainly agriculture has changed over the years. But the point is that I believe the agriculture community in Vermont wants to do it right, and many of them are doing it right, and some of them are in fact national leaders. You know, Blue Spruce Farm has been recognized by the EPA, and they're not alone in terms of their efforts to do things right. We have an organic movement in this state that is national leaders, and that is a really interesting diversification of the traditional dairy and agricultural economy. And there's many other facets that are really inspiring when you get out in the field and talk to these folks. And
now you're transitioning into Extension. What do you want folks to know about UVM Extension?
UVM Extension, first and foremost, is there to help. And it's engaged in your community probably in ways you don't necessarily understand, whether it be an education program for families and youth, or where we're often seen as being engaged with the agriculture community around farm viability and food safety and water quality. But there's an enormous amount of educational effort that goes on at the community level. And so I invite people to look for the UVM Extension and look for their programs and personnel that are out there in their community trying to help. And let us know what you think, and engage in the activities that we're engaged in ourselves, so we can help your community be the kind of place you want it to be.
What are some of the challenges as you look forward?
Well, Vermont is always changing, and I think one of the challenges is to take what is a great, amazing group of people and some really wonderful programs and figure out how they need to change and adapt as we go forward. Vermont's not a static place, and I think that's the challenge of any organization like Extension, or for that matter, the Agency of Agriculture, is to change to meet the needs of the time. And I think I need to spend a lot of time learning. There's a lot more that I don't know right now than I do know about Extension, and that's going to be a fun process for me to learn and work with my new colleagues to figure out what we can do to be even more relevant than we are today.
Do you have anything else you want to say to Vermonters about Extension in your new role?
Well, like I said, we really are here to help, and that's a wonderful opportunity for us as Extension's staff and faculty. And it's an opportunity to have a partnership with our communities and the University of Vermont. And we're there to serve, and as extensions of the university in people's communities, to help them make the kind of communities they want to have.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today and talking about your new role. I'm sure we'll see you again in the years to come.
Yep, thanks, Judy, very much.
If you have a question or comment for the new Director of Extension, you can reach him at the State Office in Burlington. The toll-free number is 1-866-622-2990, or you can send Chuck an email. His email address is chuck.ross@uvm.edu. And that's our program for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.